Welcome back to the Wrong Advice Podcast. I'm your host, John Picciuto, and I'm very excited to have the one and only Mr. Teague Shoup on with us today. Teague, how you doing, my buddy?
Good, good. How are you doing, man?
Can't complain. It's
Yeah.
conference football championship Sunday, so
No kidding. We got a time limit, right? We got a
we
we got a timer set. Yeah.
we got a timer set and we're ready to
Uh,
go. Excited to be here. Excited to have you on. I know this has been
yeah.
a long time coming. Can you
No
give a
kidding.
quick introduction to the listeners to who you are?
Sure, sure. Okay. So, as he stated, Teague Shoup. I am a photographer from Wisconsin in the I call it the New York adjacent area. I live in New Haven, Connecticut, but it's a lot cooler to say New York area. But yeah, so I've been photographing now for a little over 2 years, which I know for most artists isn't a very long time. And I'd say I kind of just came into my own style in the last year or so, last year and a half. So I'm mainly a street photographer, but right now I'm kind of moving into more avenues with some editorial fashion work, some shooting behind the scenes of movies and that kind of thing. So, really just trying to not only explore this art form, but also, explore my own style and what I can apply it to. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit about myself.
First of all, I love that. I didn't realize that we were very similarly at the beginning stages of our journeys because
Yeah, yeah.
I just started August 2020, so 3.5
Okay.
years or so in
Right,
mine,
right. Which is
which is
funny
cool.
because like
Yeah.
that feels like such a long time because of like
Oh yeah.
growth and those things. But like then you'll hear somebody talk like, "Oh, I've had a camera in my hand since I was 4 years old," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Wow,
It's very funny, Teague. Honestly, going back when my parents sold their house a couple years ago, I did always have a camera in my hand. I used to make my
really?
parents get me disposables all the time, and I didn't know
Okay,
that until they sold their house, and I found like all these photos that I took on like
no
disposables, which
way,
is which
yeah,
is
yeah."
pretty cool. Which
Well,
is
yeah,
pretty
and so also what I mean, you don't have to disclose this. What year were you born?
1985. I'm a beautiful
1985.
38-year-old man.
Okay. So yeah, like do you remember like we had so I'm from Wisconsin. I mentioned that, but like small town, one grocery store in the whole like county kind of thing. And I remember specifically like the disposable bin that you
Hmm.
put it in and they'd send it off and whatnot. I remember that so vividly. And I remember doing the same thing. I wonder how many people got started with disposables. You know what I mean?
Everybody. I mean,
Whoa.
everybody.
Yeah.
Like I distinctly remember my parents had a Polaroid camera, which I now
Okay.
have. It doesn't really work anymore. But
But
like the
still you
giant
have it?
one, yeah, I still have it. Yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
That's cool.
I remember the sound as a kid because like we found some old Polaroids when we were cleaning out the house and a
Yeah.
lot of the old photos that we took, which is cool. Which we'll talk about digital and film soon for sure.
Sure, sure. Yeah, we'll
Um,
get into it.
but I remember the noise as a kid. I remember dropping them off like RIP to Broadway Photo and Video in Caldwell, New Jersey.
Okay.
Oh man, like I just remember we would go there like, you'd go on a Friday night, you'd rent a movie, right? You would
Yep,
go
yep, yep.
pick 2 3 movies for the weekend,
Hmm.
and I guess we were buying a lot of disposables. Um
Right.
I don't remember my parents having like any like point and shoot cameras, but my dad did have
Right.
like I have it now. I don't know if it's an F2 or a Nikon F3 or whatever. It's an old
Okay.
camera, like from the
Yeah.
60s or something. So yeah,
Sure, sure.
it was always part of my life, and it just took me
Right.
35 years to to get there.
To realize that you like actually liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like if I could okay, so funny enough, I kind of same thing. We had like, point and shoot digital cameras when I was, younger. Because I'm a little bit younger. I was born in '94. But so like I got to see kind of the transition into like the little Kodak point and shoots that
Hmm.
sucked. But I would use those all the time. We'd go on, we went on 2 family vacations during that like recession in '08
Hmm.
because we got like money back or whatever. And I remember like taking that thing and just like taking pictures of the most random stuff. But just because it was so cool that I got to like take a picture of something and it was mine. But then I never touched it again. Funny enough, until like the 2016 Fairy Light, Brandon Wolfel, kind of
Oh.
that era. I bought like a Canon Rebel off of Amazon and like did it for a little bit. But then that like the idea of aperture and shutter and all that stuff was so daunting that I like
Hmm.
and I wasn't good at it right away, so I just dropped it. And then finally, like 10 years after that, kind of got back into it. It's so
It
funny how like it you wind back up in the place that you're supposed to be.
100%. I think that's partially the beauty of life, and also like
Yeah.
the slightly annoying parts. Like, could you have like
Yeah.
maybe made me realize this like 20 years earlier? But
Right. Right.
it is what it is.
For sure.
Obviously, it seems like it's always been sort of part of your life. But talk to me about the last couple of
Somewhat.
years as you've been obviously taking more seriously, getting more
Yeah.
opportunities, and sort of like what the career path has led you to
Yeah.
over the last 2.5 years.
Um, it was kind of a strange and roundabout way of kind of coming into it. And I will say, like, shout out the pandemic, I guess. And you hear about that a lot. Like they talk about like the great leave of professional careers and whatnot. But like I'd never gotten to spend that much time just kind of doing nothing and spending time with myself. And I for the past in 2020 for the past 3 or 4 years I'd been bodybuilding. And a lot of that time, obviously bodybuilding, you're posting pictures of yourself. It's so much external, validation and stuff to do with like posting and posing and whatnot. And during that, I had like a revelation of like, oh, there's going to be a time where this fades, where my body that I'm getting attention for and putting self worth into is no longer going to bring me that same feeling. And I had a really like urgent need to create something external that didn't have to do with myself.
Ooh.
And funny enough, I got the idea. I was like, man, I'm thinking of like all these pro basketball and football players that take up golf in their later years because they can still be competitive for a long time. And
Mhm.
so instead of, me thinking like, all right, I'm going to quit bodybuilding and golf, I was like, I saw a couple videos of like film aesthetic TikToks.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa, that's kind of something that I like, like just taking more aesthetic pictures. I'd always been kind of artistically minded. Um, but it was like a High School Musical thing. I had to kind of pick like being an athlete or being an artist.
Yeah.
And I picked being an athlete. So then finding like this artistry later on, I bought a camera off of eBay, a $50 film camera.
Nice.
It was a so it was a Canon TL, and
Okay.
if you look it up, you can't even find it. I have no idea why I picked that one. And I went
Because there's
through
50
when I
bucks.
exactly
Yeah.
$50, and there's like the TL, the QL, there's all these like
I had a QL,
one off.
a Canonette. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
they're like there's all these letter Canon whatever,
Mhm.
but I got that, and I loved the idea of film. So I was taking it with me everywhere. I was taking pictures. I didn't know that there were settings. So I just was like, psh, psh, just taking pictures of everything. B, the first roll I sent off was to Walgreens. Of
Mhm.
course, it came back blank. And I
Yeah.
was like, damn, this sucks. But then I went through 15 rolls before I got the first one to ever work.
Oh
I
shit.
like I asked so many of my friends because then I was determined to make it work because it didn't work right away. I think had it worked right away, I don't know what my
Yeah.
relationship would have been like. So I kept like delaying the gratification, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like do two rolls, and one friend would be like, "Dude, it's the shutter speed. You got to mess with the shutter speed." So I'd mess with the shutter speed, and they'd be like, I'd turn it into Walgreens. They'd be like, "There was light, but there was nothing else." And I was like, "Okay, we're getting closer."
Yeah.
So then I asked another friend, and one of my friends was like, "You could tell what the pictures look like if you take the film up and hold it to light. You could see the pictures." So I'd shoot a roll, pull it out, look it up, and be like, "There's nothing. I screwed it up again." Um,
Yeah.
so
In that very
event
moment.
right, yeah, right, yeah, exactly. So in the process, I kept getting closer and closer, and then I was going to Wisconsin for Christmas with my girlfriend, and I brought a couple rolls. I had a Pentax K1000,
Nice.
um, and I shot these rolls. We went to a Packer Browns game on Christmas Day,
Mhm.
and I shot a roll there, and then we were walking around Madison, Wisconsin, and I shot a roll there, and they ended up coming out,
Mhm.
and I was like in it. That was immediately hooked. I've never felt anything like that from like hitting game winners in basketball, from like throwing touchdowns. to competing on a bodybuilding stage, like nothing
Mhm.
felt like how I felt when I got those first pictures back. And then, I'll tell you a bunch of more stuff about, from now until then. But that feeling was pretty. Do you remember your first roll of film? Well, other than the
Yeah.
disposables.
So film wise, right when the pandemic started, um, I started a job the I started a job March 9th, March 11th, we went fully remote.
Sure.
So I was home all the time, not doing anything except work and like
Yeah.
drowning in my inefficiencies as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just was like very socially isolating, and I was with my family, and it wasn't like it was bad, right? There was nothing,
Right.
like when you're
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anybody who was single during the pandemic can relate to the fact that it was just like a very bizarre time. We were doing fucking FaceTime dates, and like
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
there was no creative outlook. There was nothing. Like I was playing video
Nope.
games, I was watching movies, I was getting drunk like every night.
Uh
So
huh. Uh
when
huh.
August came and I got let go from my job, I
What
got a
were and
very
pause? What were you doing for
I
work?
was working for a real estate development company.
Okay. Okay.
So it was like the quick flash in the pan, 6 months out, like, just like
Yeah.
bad life timing, whatever. And I was
Sure.
like devastated, lost. My life is over. So I got a great severance package. I bought like a M6, and I
That was your
literally
first camera?
no, it wasn't my first camera.
Well, but
My very first camera that I bought was like I was my 23rd or 24th birthday. My buddy owns a camera store. I bought like the
oh,
Canon something something.
sure.
Uh, I don't know which one it was, but I bought
Yeah.
it and it promptly went in my closet and I never touched it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had over time, like from 25 to whatever 35, when I went through this, I would I would always buy shit, but I was
Sure.
never used, right?
Yeah.
So at some point in like the first X100F, like I bought that. I had it
Yeah.
for like 6 weeks and then sold it. Like I never felt a real connection to it. I was like, oh, I like watching these YouTube videos, and then I'll buy a camera and then I'll pretend I'm a photographer for 5 minutes and then like get rid of everything.
Right.
So I did that repeatedly, like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until the pandemic when I was like, I'm gonna like just really strip back and try to figure out what I want to do with my life. And I was like, I went on a cross country trip, just me, my Jeep, and I had a I bought a Hasselblad 500 CM and a Leica M6, and
Okay.
I was like, I'm gonna just go on this trip with no plan and no destination, and I'm gonna just shoot and take photos and see if
Yeah.
like this is the thing that I am meant to do, and it was.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of photos from that trip that I love, and a lot of them that I think, with the benefit of hindsight, were like telling a story of like how I was feeling, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
isolated. So I was shooting a lot of individual subjects. Like I was in Chicago and I was shooting people alone, right? Because I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling
Mm-hmm.
alone.
Right.
And like throughout the course of the trip, I realized what I was doing with taking the photos was really expressing how I was feeling, which was a
Yeah.
cool understanding when that struck me. And
Well,
that was
exactly. Yeah.
and that was sort of what set it off. And then
Yeah.
ever since then, I've been doing it full time. And I
Which is
quickly
crazy.
yeah, I bought a Canon R5 when I got back from my trip.
Yep.
Uh and I just started networking like crazy. And
Right.
here we are 3.5 years later, and I'm doing it, and it's
Yeah.
everything I could have hoped for and dreamed for. And that's not to say I have like the best anything, right?
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I've gotten to the point where like I'm doing everything I want to do, and
Right. Like fulfillment wise. Exactly.
fulfillment wise, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is like a shift, because like you go from 3.5 years ago to where I had a huge high paying job, and I was like, this is what life is about, like making all
Right.
this, and then you reassess.
Yeah.
Um, what was the photo for you on that trip that like triggered for you? Like, do you remember the
So
specific image?
yeah, and I'll send it to you specifically after this. But so like I said, we were walking around Madison, and it was there's this thing when you're photographing, and I'm obviously sure that you've come across it a million times. Where like you were like supposed to leave, but you decide to go down a street that you don't normally go down or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like divine timing. You're like, holy shit, of course, this is the thing. So that kind of happened for us. We were around the Capitol in Madison, and it was really foggy. It was like the day before. It was Christmas Eve. There's no snow on the ground in Wisconsin, which is very weird.
Mhm.
And we were about to leave, and then there's this terrace overlooking, I think it's a lake, but I don't remember specifically. There's like a body of water right next to the Capitol.
Mhm.
And we were like, let's just go over there and look. Well, we go over to look, and obviously it's foggy. You can't see anything past 20 yards. So we're kind of just standing there. And then I look down, and the terrace is overlooking like a street going. And I look down, and there's a fisherman just by himself, you know, casting out into this body of water. And I climbed up on this, and I have a video, and I'll send it to you. I climb up on this like light fixture, totally not safe, overlooking this, like, you know, the railing. I surpass that. I like lean down, Pentax K1000 50 millimeter lens, and I take it. And like, while my style has changed, you know, since then, I still am like, I love this photo. Like that, you know,
Mhm.
it's a great photo. It was with like Fuji Superia 400.
R.I.P.
Yeah, exactly, right. But yeah, it was just like immediately I was like, wow. Well, and I think too, like, because I did the things like I was, you know, climbing on a light fixture to get the photo, like
Mhm.
I felt this call to do all that, and then when I got the response that I wanted, it was like, okay, this is making art. You know what I mean? Like, this is what the artistic process is.
Was the response that you wanted external validation via social media or from your own?
Yeah.
uh, Genuine
Um,
question. Genuine
no,
question.
and you know what's funny is, and this is as short-winded as I can make this. I have been the kind of person where I get interested in something, I make it my entire personality, and then I lose it in like a year or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So many people that know me have seen me go from like, I moved out to New York when I was 19 to be an actor and a model, made that my personality, came back, did, you know, played college football, made that my person, you know, and I've done this. So when I posted it, people were like, cool. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they
Here we
were
go
so
again.
used to me. Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I got none of that. I got no external validation, but I was so happy that I created something that, you know, my whole thought process with it when I first started is like, I just want to make shit that looks cool to me, and that's all I care about.
Totally
And it
agree.
looked cool to me, and
Mhm.
that felt like enough for the first time in a really long time. I was like, oh, there was no like, well, it could have been better. Oh, well, it doesn't look like so and so's picture. It was just that moment between me and this environment. And I was with my brother, my girlfriend, his girlfriend. So it was like a really special moment too. And it was just like, it checked all the boxes that I needed. And it was such like something, again, like I'd never experienced before. And I think, again, had that instance not happened, had the roles not worked out that way, I don't know if I would be as hooked as I am now. But
I
yeah.
really, I gotta say, so I'm sort of the same. Like, I bought guitars and I was going to be a
Yeah.
musician. Like, it was all
Right.
with the comfort of, like, I always had a 9 to 5. Like, I would never, like,
Sure.
totally, the thought idea of, like, packing up, moving to LA to, like, be an actor or something, like,
Yeah.
fuck no. Like, I would never have
Right.
done that. Like, I've
Yeah.
always done these things with the comfort and the, like, sort of parachute of, like, hey, I've got my job. Like, I'll be good.
Right. Hmm.
And to be honest, I think you need a lot of credit for that because like you took a lot of opportunities in life to like take chances and understand and try to further understand who you are as a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people do that. I think you'd be surprised the amount of people who like judge you less for, oh, this isn't, he's trying another thing, and are more like, that's pretty fucking cool, like trying to
Yeah.
figure out your thing. Because I've been
Right.
there. This podcast is an extension of like me trying to figure
Right.
out my thing. Like same
Yeah.
thing with photography and music
Hmm.
and like whatever you try, like at the end of the day, I think there's a lot to be said for taking those risks and putting yourself out
Yeah.
there, which is, I think, is really fucking cool.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you know, props to you for kind of doing the exact same thing, but a little more dramatic. You know what I mean? Like, you just dropped it all and said, going all in. But I think, yeah, I think like with doing that, like, sure, it sure would be nice to have a lot more stability,
Hmm.
because I've done this a lot. I'm a
Yeah.
very much like pack it up, restart, move across the country kind of person, which has been awesome sometimes, sarcastically. But I think like I'm okay with it because I have so many experiences now. And like
Hmm.
it's cool because I have a lot of stories and like, you know, a lot of things and friends and whatnot have come from this thing. And I think in the grand scheme of things, you know, I hold that to be a lot more valuable than like, well, if my car breaks, I'm walking to work because I can't afford to fix it kind of thing.
Yeah.
That stability would be nice every once in a while, but like,
Yeah.
you know,
I think
experience
one of the
wise.
great I think one of the great lessons that I've learned in life is that the what's it like life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And like
Yeah.
you can like lay out a roadmap for everything that you ever wanted in life. And there are people by all means that like write A to Z and are living
Yeah.
that path. I
Right.
was never really that person. Like
Hmm.
I wanted to be a professional football player. I wanted to be an
Yeah.
agent. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to do all these things. I had no like real rudder. Like I wasn't sure
Right.
where I was going, and
Hmm.
that's probably closer to the norm than not. But
Right.
I think like without the benefit of life experience, you can't figure out who you are to then understand what you want to be doing. Like
Right.
to me,
Right.
like 18 to 22, like when everyone goes to college, you shouldn't be going to college. You should be
No,
traveling the
not at
world.
all. No.
you,
Yeah.
you should be learning about who you are as a human
Right.
being, because
Right.
at fucking 18 I'm supposed to know that I want to be an economics major. Like no,
Yeah.
I just did it because I was like I could probably do well in this, like fucking
Right.
duh. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And you like you're googling like the net worth of the average.
Right.
You're like, how what is the average income of a, you know,
Yeah.
exactly. And you're like,
Yeah.
this seems like it would make money.
Now at this point in my life, I mean, listen, there are jobs that I take for paychecks, and that is
Yeah.
because I have rent to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been blessed with the ability to do well in the last couple of years as I've made this my full-time career, and I think I'm
Right.
lucky. But like I do a million things. It's not as
Sure.
if like I'm just sitting here and like maybe someone will call me on Monday. No, like I'm like
Uh,
fucking chasing down opportunities. I'm like it's constant. But like I think
you're
if you
just
don't
DMing Instagram models. That's it. That's all you're doing all day.
right, no, actually I only wait for them to
Let's
DM
shoot.
me. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it's
Right, right,
just
right.
like, you gotta wait for them to, yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
But no, it's like this is like a creative lifestyle is really difficult for people because I don't think everyone understands that it's not like I hate the fucking term entrepreneur, but like if you don't have the drive to like start a business
Right.
and create something from scratch, you're not going to be successful.
Sure.
I've
Sure.
always been blessed with the ability to just do shit and like
Right.
this podcast. Hey, I want to start a podcast. How do I do it? Boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Do it. If
Yep.
you don't have the ability to like sort of maintain that like balance between work and life, you it's tough to be in these kind of jobs, which I think
Right.
is what ultimately weeds down the people who are capable of doing it.
Hmm.
um as of late, you've been doing some pretty cool shit. You mentioned that you just shot your first BTS for I don't know if it was a
Yeah.
movie or a show or whatever.
Yep. Movie.
I've done a couple of those jobs. I think they're the most fun. I think that's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's like sort of we're similar. We both love street photography, and like did
Yeah.
equally. That's sort of like the path that I'm trying to go down as well.
Right.
Tell me what that experience was like for you, because we both love movies, so it's like I feel
Right.
like we can, yeah.
Yeah. No, and that's I genuinely think it is. I mean, and I will say huge props to Ben, the director. Kind of a little bit how it came about. I asked a friend how to like get into the industry kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned, he's like, go on Indiegogo, go on Kickstarter, look
Yep.
at movies that are looking for funding around you, message them,
Mm-hmm.
ask if they would like behind the scenes. Now, there's a lot of debate on whether you should offer your services for free or if you should get some money. I am not a professional photographer yet.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the sense that I've made money from it and
Mm-hmm.
I'm decent at it, but it is not my job. So I knew that I need to take a chance and maybe do this one pro bono. And I reached out. There was the first person I reached out to about this. He said yes. I came. I shot on 3 days. One was in October, and then 2 weeks ago I shot for 2 days over the weekend, and it was genuinely like I had another one of those moments like, oh my God, if I can somehow do this for a living,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would ever think of this as a day of work ever. Like it was such a
Yeah.
blast. They were so kind to me. The director actually likes my street photography stuff, and he was like, just do that,
Yep.
just do that thing here, and that's all you have to do. And it ended up being like, A, some of my best work, B, the most fun I've had photographing. And see, and like you said, we both love movies, and so just getting to see, because I'd never been on set before, so
Hmm.
getting to see how it's made is also like, it's like, okay, I get to be on set, cool enough, I would love to just do that, but I'm also getting to like document it too. Good lord, like, can I,
Yeah.
all I can ask for more is to eventually get paid for it. So,
Hmm.
what have
I
you done in that realm?
so I've done a couple. Real quick. So first of all, the
Sure.
debate on free versus paid. Uh,
Yeah.
People have this conversation ad nauseum,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the thing that bugs me is that like we are all in different circumstances and what we're like afforded the opportunity to do, right?
Yes.
So if you're in a position where you can do something for free because
Yeah.
you want the opportunity,
Hmm.
why is that a problem? Like
I
people
don't
look at
know.
that like, oh, you're taking away a paid up. No, no, no. If they're gonna
Right.
let you do it for free, they're not paying someone else to do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Right.
very seldom not the case. Um,
Right.
and I think it's important for people to understand that if you are in a position to be able to do something for free and it's going to be something that you want to do, just fucking do it. Like
Right. Yeah,
why
exactly.
we have in our minds that this is taking away or whatever detracting from no.
Right.
I've never been offered an opportunity to do something for free that people were going to
Yeah.
pay me to do. First
Yeah,
of all, like
exactly.
let's
Right.
call a spade a spade. And
Yeah, right, right.
I just like I love that debate because people get like all up in arms and defensive about it, and I don't think it's like a fair like argument, right? Like
No, I agree. I agree completely.
so
And like,
I
and
good.
you can go, yeah.
I would say I like that you did it for free because you don't have the experience, you've never done it before. How am
Right.
I supposed to articulate to you that you should pay me a certain amount of money to do something I've never done before?
Right, exactly. Exactly. And funny enough, he was talking about it. He's like, I just don't think we have the, because it's a like a crowd-funded
Independent, yeah.
project. And they were like, I just don't think we have the budget for it. And I was like, okay, so here are my options. One, ask for
Don't do it.
money,
Yeah.
don't get the job, and don't get to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or do it for free. It's in the area I'm in anyways. I'm not losing money by doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And now, guess what? I have it on my resume now that I've done this. Future people don't know if I got paid for this or not. It's not going to say on the bottom, did for free.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to see that I shot behind the scenes for a movie. And now I have this on my resume. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
on my website. Like, that is why I did it,
Mm-hmm. I
you
totally
know?
agree. I've done things. I seldom do things for free now, just because I've been doing this long enough
Right. Yeah, exactly.
where
Yeah.
I would have to be extremely selective about something that I do for zero because
Yes.
I'm compensated quite well for the shit that I do. The
Mm-hmm.
idea of doing something for free now, it would have to. I don't even know what the opportunity would have to
It
be
would
for
have
me
to
to
be a
do.
big opportunity, though. Yeah,
It would
exactly.
have to be something crazy. All
Yeah.
that is to be said is I still to this day will tell people this is my rate for this
Yeah.
job. If they say our budget is X and I'm okay with it, I'm going to do the job for less.
Exactly.
Eh,
Yeah, exactly.
People from a business perspective need to make those decisions for themselves and then also not fault someone for doing that. Like,
Right.
that's my high horse. Like,
Yeah. Well, no, and I think,
soapbox. Yeah. That's like,
like you said, you
mhm,
said, you said like it's circumstantial, right? Like,
totally.
it's like there's someone I know that got reached out to by Kodak to do
Hmm.
like partnership stuff with them, and they like were like, well, what are you going to pay me? And it's like, well, it's I'm sorry, it's fucking Kodak. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, you're a film photographer. Like, at least get your foot in the door. Don't worry about money now. And then, like,
Okay. So this is one of those
well,
instances where we can have a friendly debate about this. If
sure,
Kodak's reaching out to me to shoot for them and they want to partner,
I get that. Yeah, I get that completely.
Kodak has the means to compensate people afforded,
Sure,
right?
I understand that for sure.
I'm more so talking about if there's a band I want to shoot, they don't have a
Yeah,
budget.
yeah,
If there's like this BTS thing, you're doing an independent
right,
film, their budget, the entire GoFundMe was probably maybe $1 million, small amount
right.
of money. Of course,
Yeah,
they don't
I think
have.
this was 50,000.
Oh shit! Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah,
even
yeah,
smaller, dude.
right.
I did BTS on a show.
Hmm.
Um, truthfully, it was the worst experience of my entire life. And to be fair, is why I'll never do anything like that for free. It was too much of a
Sure.
time commitment, too much of like
Yeah.
a chaotic mess. You just have to be choosy about what you do for things.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
Um,
I agree.
it just really depends on circumstances.
Right. And
Um,
like you said, like if someone is reaching out to you for your services and they have somewhat of the means, like Kodak, I do understand that, like the means to do it. I guess like this was me reaching out to somebody else going, hey, let me do this. And then it'd be
mhm.
weird for me to turn around and be like, actually, well, here's my, you know what I mean? With no
100%.
experience. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all individualistic per the opportunity, which I think is
Sure.
important.
Sure. Yeah.
And also like how you handle yourself in those situations will go crucially far to like how your reputation is preceded
Yeah.
and
Right.
and
Right.
and what opportunities you're afforded in the future.
Yeah.
So like always be mindful of these things, like
Right.
dictionary definition of don't bite your nose to spite your face.
Right,
Um,
right. Exactly. And the cool thing is like, so this was a low budget project, like as low budget as it gets, but they had a director of photography that was doing a favor for his wife, who was the co-director.
mhm,
And he just was the cinematographer for that new Spielberg show that just came out on Apple TV. So it was like, how the hell would I have gotten in the room with that person had I
100%.
not taken this opportunity? So it's like I'm at least all and could I have done this and it been a nightmare? Sure.
Yeah,
But
of
then at
course.
least at least I wasn't investing any of my own money into it.
That's life.
But luckily it wasn't.
I think that goes crucially far to also like discuss how like you handle yourself as a person in the rooms that you're in.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of people get wrapped up in social media and like what's not real, and then like when they're in the
Yeah.
environment, they think of themselves as like sort of not a human, like they're just like this like faux
Yeah.
celebrity of themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to say maybe 90 to 95% of every opportunity I've had since I became a full-time photographer was other people putting my name out there
Yes.
versus me doing the work, right? The
Right. Yeah,
work the
100%.
the way that people talk about you in the rooms that you're not in is what's going to be paramount to your
Right.
success in
Right.
whatever profession you have.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times we get sort of caught up not thinking about that, right? So
Right.
that to me has been a great lesson, because especially in a field where I have no connections, I don't know any people, I'm all doing this for the first time. Like
Sure.
how you treat people and how you operate in the situations that you are afforded the opportunities to be in
Right.
will go extremely far. Like you said, you met a DP who worked on a Spielberg show.
Yeah, yeah.
in
Right.
in his mind, if you're a good person, you're funny, you have a good time, like you're doing professional work there, he's going to
Right.
think like, hey, we need someone to shoot BTS for this show. What was that guy's name again? Boom.
Yeah, exactly. Right. No, and yeah, and like I think that's, people are going to remember your work, right? But now we
Mm-hmm.
are kind of in an age where we know so much about people, both
Mm-hmm.
because we have more access to people, because we post more about ourselves, all those things. You can't escape reputation anymore.
Yeah.
How many people have we worked with where, they may be a talented person, but they suck. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They they
Yeah.
they just suck. And it's
Yeah.
like those and unfortunately a lot of the times it does seem like those people do get a lot of work, you know what I mean?
It's one of those things. It's like, man, shit, I'm gonna butcher this. Whatever. The You could be an absolute shitbag. Like,
Yeah.
there's plenty of like million, 2 million follower Instagram photographers who
Yeah.
are pieces of shit, but
Hmm.
they're like still shooting a cover of Vogue. Like, whatever. Cool.
Yep,
Good for
yep.
them.
Sure. Yeah.
I think as I get older, the things that I care about are less of like what I'm doing and like more of how I'm doing it. Like
Yeah, yeah.
you mentioned artistically the street photography thing. Like I think my documentary photography artistic style is what has gotten me a lot of opportunities to do BTS stuff. To
Right.
do like I'm shooting a show in a couple weeks for a major brand, and I'm shooting all their BTS
Yeah.
because they like what I did last year. And like
Yeah.
if I'm much more focused at this point in my career of honing my artistic voice and less
Hmm.
like worrying about, well, why haven't I shot a cover of something yet? You know what I
I
mean?
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And I guess that is a conversation that we can have here. And I will say, prefacing this, I know that this is I promise this is not coming from an entitled place, because I am not inflating my self-worth or whatever. But I am so much more interested in people seeking out my aesthetic and like, or I hate the word aesthetic, but my thing
Mm-hmm.
more so than me trying to fill the needs of some other company.
Totally
Now,
agree.
I get that you have to work to do that. And I also get that that's why I haven't made money from doing this. But it's kind of that thing like if I am just doing something because, I am just translating something for someone else, it's just as meaningless to me as working as a middleman in a corporation. And
Mm-hmm.
it's sure it's still artistic. And I get that a lot of people would love to just do that. Like, hey, at least it's what I love to do. Who cares if it's not exactly how I would edit it or how I would compose it, whatever. I just I just really want to build myself up kind of from the ground zero, ground up, so that people are seeking out my
What?
look,
Yeah.
that and so I'm in the process of exploring that. Like, how can I, garner that attention or garner that need from other people that they want my thing,
Mm-hmm.
more than the opposite. But
So I totally agree with you. I think, like most photographers, that's the thing that I've struggled most with is like identifying my voice as a
yes,
photographer
right,
and what I want like a photo of mine to look and feel and say.
right,
And that is an evolving situation.
100%.
Um, I was on a week or two ago with my buddy James, and I was like, when I'm scrolling Instagram and I see one of your photos, I don't need to see the name to know that it's your photo. And he
Hmm.
surprised me when he told me that he was really never felt that way. Like he doesn't feel like
Wow,
he's
yeah,
got like his look or his feel, and
right,
that surprised me.
yeah,
Similarly, when I'm scrolling my feed and I see your photos, I know that it's you without seeing your
yeah,
name. And
right.
you said you're working on that as well. How has the process of trying to unfold your artistic voice matched up to like sort of what that process has been like over the 2.5 years that you've been doing it?
Sure. And I will say, I also, when I'm scrolling, recognize your stuff right away as well. So like, it's cool
Well,
that
thank
we
you.
are getting to a place now that we can say that and have that. I think that's every photographer's like goal is to have
Yeah.
their work be recognizably theirs.
Hmm.
Now with me, because I think too, because I'm so early into it, that I think something that artists should do, and I think what a lot of artists do, is that at the beginning they emulate the people that they find, artistically cool. When
Hmm.
if you watch even in movies, you'll see directors where you're like, oh, those early movies are very reminiscent of this, and then they say that this was their favorite movie, so it makes sense.
Hmm.
If you look at my early stuff, I was so entranced by like Saul Leiter and these abstract long lens people, and a lot of all of my work was that for my first year, I never went wider than 90 millimeters. Like I
Oh
that
shit.
never like I thought 50 millimeter. I was like, not interested. Don't I would sit there and look at these New York street photographers using 28, being like, yuck. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And then so all of my stuff looked like Saul Leiter esque, whatever, like a bastardized version of it.
Yeah.
Um, but then as I consumed more and more art, my limits and what I thought possible and what I find technically achievable and attractive has changed as well. So, I went from Saul Leiter, Ernst Haas, those kind of people to like Alex Webb, where he's using a 35, and there's so many, it's still a compressed image, but now there's multiple elements and those things. And I think that has given me a lot more voice than just being another person with an 85 millimeter lens shooting a sole subject kind of thing. Because I think you see
Mm.
that a lot,
Yeah.
and I think that has done more for me in my exploration of my thing than anything. Because then now I'm watching movies and they're using 12 and 18 millimeter lenses, and I'm like, holy shit, this is so much that I never even thought possible, and now I'm finding that influence in my work now, and I think it's going to be really cool, if the world is still revolving in 10 years,
Yeah.
20 years, to kind of look back at my work and being like, oh, that was my Alex Webb phase, oh, that was this phase, and hopefully by then it'll be like, now it's just my thing,
Ooh,
you know.
I like
um
that.
yeah,
I
and
like.
it's now it's just recognizably my aesthetic, and people are going, oh, and not saying I want influence, so to say, but like, I would love for people to be like, oh yeah, that's Teague's thing, like
Yeah,
that's what he does, and people are taking influence from that. I think that's kind of the end goal with it.
I love that. I love all of that. Um, I really, 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 really relate to that.
Yeah,
Um, it's a work in progress. It really
sure.
is. Like
Yeah,
to me, I don't even shoot. I don't like. I this is crazy. I don't even shoot 35 millimeter film street photography anymore. Like,
yeah.
shout out to Lynette, my dear friend who I love dearly. She's the best. But I had her on my podcast. We met through Stefan Vanasco, who's a real one and the best.
Hmm.
And she shoots street photography on her Hasselblad, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait, like when we first spoke a couple years ago, I was like, I have a Hasselblad. I was like, you shoot street
Hmm.
photography with that thing? And after having done it the first time, it changed my experience with street
Yeah,
photography
yeah,
permanently.
exactly.
And that's like my thing now. Like, I just
Right.
love the opportunity to take that fucking monster clunky
Yeah.
mirror out
Here.
and walk. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. And walk New York City and shoot with it. And like, to
Right.
me, it's not something that I started doing, and it's not something that I've spent a lot of time doing, but it's the thing that I do that I love to do, right?
Yeah, it's
And
an evolution of your work.
right. And similarly,
Yeah.
like when I'm in studio with models, like your girlfriend can attest to this,
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where the shooting of Polaroids has become something that I care more about the Polaroids looking good than I do about like the work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Which is
100%.
like
Absolutely.
maybe a little dumb, maybe not. But for me,
No,
like
not at
in terms
all.
of like what I want to create, like I get excited when the Polaroids come out and they look fucking good
Right.
versus like, oh cool, like this digital photo that I took that it's going to go in your book looks good, right? To me
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's very funny how, but like again to what you said, that like that's like the expansion of who I am as a photographer
Mhm.
and what I'm trying to
Mhm.
do artistically, and finding those roads and avenues that like work for you take time.
Yeah, and I think too, um, finding those things, finding so professionally, I'm a personal trainer. That's my job.
Hmm.
And there's something I talk a lot about. I talk about software updates a lot in terms of like, okay, when you first get started, you just have to focus on doing, like when I first started photography, I wanted to just have a fucking roll turn out. You know what I mean? Who cares about what the photo is? I just want it to work. And so, like with fitness, it's like just getting in here, doing some of the workouts. That's the first step. Then there's form and all these things. And then there's programming. And then there's, progressive overload and all these things. And each time you just, you get good at the thing and then you software update. Now you expand. And I kind
Hmm.
of think of that with my work as well as like, had I seen my work now 2 years ago, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like holy shit, I would have never imagined taking something like that or probably finding it all that good because my
Hmm.
taste was so different back then. But what's cool is I can still shoot that stuff. Those tools are still here. I am just now using those tools, building off of them, and then creating something with all of them and maybe something more cohesive and something bigger. And I think, even with like your Polaroids, you know what I mean? Like that's almost, you've gotten to a point now where you're simplifying your thing and breaking it down to its simplest form. And then that's probably why it's so cool to you is because there's no huge technological feat of engineering and Photoshop and whatnot. Like that's the photo. And
Hmm.
so when it does come out, you're like, hell yeah, like that is its purest form, and not in the sense of like film is its pure, whatever,
Yeah,
not
right.
that
No, no, yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
But like that's
Of the
that's
experience.
probably, yeah, and that's it may feel or seem to people like a step back to use a Polaroid instead of a Leica or a Hasselblad or a digital camera. But like you see that with art. I mean, look at Picasso's work. You know what I mean? Like his got so much more crazy and abstract until it went back to like the simplest stuff. And I think that's growth. I think that's cool. That's the cool thing about art. But you can still shoot the stuff that you were shooting a year ago.
Hmm.
You know?
What you've just described is what, in my estimation, it takes and is required of becoming a mature adult and
Yeah.
growing as a human being, because a lot of shit gets lost in the shuffle. But if you learn and you have an experience and you're able to take that lesson from that experience and grow and move
Yeah.
on and take whatever life has taught you in the moment, whether it
Mm-hmm.
is a great success or a great failure, if you're able to take the lesson from those moments, and this could be anything, work,
Yeah.
life,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
creativity, relationships, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if you can take those, put it in your tool bag, and then take those lessons and then be able to grow from it, I think
Mm-hmm.
ultimately that is like what it means to be human and grow,
Yeah.
which I think
Exactly.
is such a beautiful thing that you just said, because it gets lost in the wayside. It really does.
Yeah. Well, especially with art, and especially if you're trying to make a living off of art, you're sometimes you're not thinking of the process as much as you're thinking about the product.
Yeah.
And when if you are mindful of why you're doing the things you're doing now, I will say I'm neurotic. I constantly think about this stuff. I can't help but like if I take a picture, I go, why was that interesting? Oh, I trace it back to this movie I just watched 6 months ago. Like that's just how my brain works.
Hmm.
But if you're not doing that and you're just kind of doing things and following a trail of smoke, I think sometimes that's where people plateau, is because
Hmm.
they end up just following the momentum that they've created for themselves instead of like,
Assessing.
yeah, exactly, assessing and taking step by step and knowing where you're going and whatnot. I think that I'm thankful that I've done that, because I think it's created a path for me where I'm doing a lot better work than had I just stayed not complacent but mindlessly doing things.
Hmm.
But yeah.
I think with the benefit of time and age, you get to an understanding of that whatever great successes and great failures you have in your life, they are inevitably leading to the same place,
Yes.
which unfortunately is no longer being alive.
Right. Yeah.
So
Right. Right.
over the course of your life, you're going to be have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and how
Hmm.
you're able to take the lessons that those benefits and negatives have for you is what inevitably gets you to a place of comfortability in your own skin
Right.
that I
Right.
think thankfully I've reached at what I would hope is like an advanced early timeline. Like
Sure. Sure.
a reoccurring thing early on in this podcast was like, could 25-year-old John have learned the lessons that it took 35-year-old John to experience? And I've
Right.
come to the realization that no, you
Right.
cannot.
Right. Mm-mm.
Life unfurls for you in a way that is on your own timeline, and your experience is what it is when it is. And as much as we would love to like have that remote control from click, that's not how it works.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
and I think that in a lot of ways that's the beauty of life, and that's also like
Yes.
what makes it super hard sometimes. But
Very hard. Very hard.
being able to have the experience and learn either whether it be artistically or relationally or work wise, whatever, is what inevitably gets you to be able to be in the place to create the things that you want.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's what surprises me a lot about people who aren't exploring just not their, but exploring their interests further.
Hmm.
It's funny, I think about that very thing, and I had a moment, it was 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago, where I heard an album. It was Long Season by Fishman. It's a deep cut. I heard this album and I had a realization that this at the time was the greatest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. I was like, wow, again, unlocked something. This is something I didn't think possible. But I thought, had I listened to this even a year prior, but let alone 10 years earlier, I wouldn't have liked that at all. And I think
Hmm.
it's strange when people don't dive into things further, where they find something they like and they're like, I found my thing that I like, and I'm just gonna, if it's an artist, if not gonna name names or something, but like, if you find an artist, whether it's like a radio played artist, and you're like, well,
I'm good. I'll
this is
just listen to this.
this is
Yeah.
cool. I'll just listen to this for the whether they have like a big enough discography to do that. But like, it's the same thing with like, we're talking about movies earlier. In the last 2 years, I've watched more movies than I probably have in my entire life combined.
Hmm.
And it has done so much for me artistically, but also as a person. Like there's just like I not to say I'm smarter than anybody else, but I'm certainly smarter than myself 3 years ago for
Oh,
having explored these things too.
love that.
So it's like I think so many people get comfortable in that first or second layer of themselves,
Yeah, complacency.
and yeah, and then because don't get me wrong, it's taken a lot of scary stuff to get to the point where I'm at, but like
Hmm.
now I'm obsessed with that. Now I'm almost doing it to a fault where I'm like, I need to find the newest artist or like trace the lineage of music, musicians back to my influence, those kind of things. I'm like almost doing that too much to where I'm like hunting nuance and novelty.
Yeah.
Um, and I need to maybe like rewatch some movies every once in a while, kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think what you were saying too, like that is life. That
Hmm.
is life is exploration. It's self exploration. You have to find out, you know, why you get mad when you see a certain commercial, or you know what I mean. That's what's interesting, and I think that's what makes good artists as well. Like if you listen to any of, I'm sure any of the people you've been influenced by, if you listen to an interview by them, you're like, wow, they're operating on a different wavelength. And it's, maybe sometimes it is because they're more intelligent than us or whatever, but like a lot of the times it's because they've taken the time to explore what makes them an artist. And I think
Hmm.
that frees up so much about yourself. And I think you were saying that too about when you left real estate and started, all of a sudden you're like, oh, these pictures that I'm taking, this is me not projecting, but finding the loneliness in the world that I'm feeling internally. And I'm
Hmm.
sure that did a lot for your introspection.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
absolutely.
I think that's important.
I totally agree with you. I think the great understanding that we're all human going through this for the first time, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whether it's your 70-year-old parent or a 55-year-old whatever, or a 12-year-old or whatever, like when you like understand that we're all kind of doing this shit for the first time and making the
Yeah,
best of it, I think you can kind of like give a little bit more grace for people to maybe not be on the same wavelength as you
right.
emotionally or mentally,
Sure.
or have the same understanding of like, your chapter 2 is not the same as my chapter 7, and
Right.
like we're allowed to
Yep.
disagree on things, but like we live in this echo chamber environment that doesn't allow for discussion or dissertation or disagreements.
Sure.
And
Sure.
unfortunately, the inevitability is that it leads to the collapse of society and
Yep.
all of
Yep.
that
Yeah,
inevitably.
sure. Right.
But if we're
But
able
we're
to,
going to be there with a camera. No, I'm just
yeah, right,
kidding.
documenting the fall of all
Yeah,
of it,
right. Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
But like to some degree, if you're able to like start realizing that everyone sort of goes through the same bullshit, and we all just want to be loved and understood and appreciated, like I think things could be just like 10% better. Like I'm not
Right.
asking for 100% better. That's a pipe
No,
dream,
no.
but it is a reality that we are all just fucking monkeys trying to figure the shit out, right?
Right. Right.
It is what it
And
is.
exactly. And if anything, we're a testament to like how simple a change can be. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like we would have been vastly different people had we not taken the leaps that we've taken.
Yeah.
And to know that one person is one life decision away from maybe being something completely different, that's also a line of empathy that you can follow. It's just like, these people all are capable of great change and great influence.
While I've reached a point of where when bad shit happens to me, I still obviously get upset.
Sure.
I've also started coming at it from a thankful place, which has allowed me to take that negative experience and learn from it quicker. So
Sure.
whatever happens, whether I'm like stewing on it for a week, a month, a year, whatever it might be, I will inevitably get to the place of, okay, I'm good with it. it's
Right.
getting, the amount of time that it takes to get there has dramatically shrunk, because like I think that just happens with age.
Yeah.
But ultimately you reach a point where like the negatives ultimately lead to better growth and better opportunities, and just like you being able to be a more complete person later on.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I agree.
which is a beautiful thing. Dude, I'm incredibly appreciative that you hopped on with me today and had this
Of
talk. I
course.
mean, we could go for fucking hours for
I
sure.
was gonna say
Uh,
we didn't even get into film versus digital.
we didn't even
We
get
didn't
there
even
yet.
get into it.
Episode 2, we'll extol the benefits of digital versus film, or vice versa. But yeah, man, I'm immensely appreciative for your time today, and super thankful that
Yeah.
you came on the pod, and can't wait to do it again. And
Yeah, of
go
course. Anytime, let me know.
go Lions, and
Yeah, the Lions and Ravens and Ravens.
yeah, yeah, maybe, yeah, Ravens, yeah, fuck the Chiefs, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fuck the Chiefs. Fuck
But
Patrick
have a great
Mahomes.
rest of your day, man. Really appreciate you
You as
coming on.
well. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm honored. I'm honored, truly.